Woo! We're back. Talkin Dawgs is back. Good to be here. Thank you for joining me. I'm here in my office. As you can see, the quality of these are not going to be great for a while, and I'll explain why. Um, I had built that YouTube channel up, my previous YouTube channel, some of you guys were on. I built it up over the course of a couple of years, and part of the whole like monetization thing and the more subscribers you get, you can you can stream through your phone. You can't do that, as far as I know, whenever you are not over that threshold. So it's going to take us a while to get back to the whole phone thing. I'm doing this from my computer webcam, and I guess I could get a better webcam, but I just I think the content is more important here. So just bear with me, and we'll get through it. The most important thing is we're going to be talking about Mississippi State sports in here. And I want to encourage you guys, obviously, to put in your questions and comments in the box. You know how this thing works. I'm going to take any and all questions that we can, as long as this thing will keep running. I'm really tired. I got a ton of work to do, but there's been so many people that have requested this, and I'm trying to appease the people that are upset that we're not doing a Thunder and Lightning at all this week. So we're going to run through this. We're going to try to get this thing going tonight and hear some thoughts from you guys and from myself as well. I'm Robbie Falk, if you didn't know already. I work for On 3 at Maroon and White Daily. I want to encourage you guys, if you haven't, to please come join us over there at Maroon and White Daily, and to also subscribe to this YouTube channel. That would be great as well. So make sure you're doing both of those things, and I would greatly appreciate that. Just got in from the SEC tournament on Saturday night. Went and covered Mississippi State baseball yesterday, finishing off a series against LSU. Great series for the Bulldogs to win one against LSU. Got a chance to go cover the men's selection show over at Two Brothers, and successfully see the men off to the NCAA tournament. The women did not make the NCAA tournament, but they made the WBIT, which, if you didn't know, this is the inaugural year for that. This is the new secondary tournament for women's basketball. It used to be the WNIT, which also still exists somehow. It's like the third tournament now. I don't know why they switched it around or whatever, but this is the secondary tournament, and it basically is the 32 teams or whatever that got left out of the NCAA tournament. They play in this tournament. And Mississippi State is a 2 seed in this, which, should have moved up to a 1 seed after Miami turned it down. But for whatever reason, James Madison moved into that spot. So I don't really know what that's all about. But the Bulldogs are a 2 seed. They will host at least the first 2 rounds if they are able to win on Thursday, where they play Georgia Tech at 6:30 p.m. at Humphrey Coliseum. By the way, if anybody wants to, there we go. That's my bad. I didn't have the chat box on, so I had no idea if this thing was working, but I think we're good now. Stephen Augustinelli, who is the better cousin of the two out of Brian Haydad and Stephen Augustinelli, is in here. He has been kind enough to come in here and actually do some work. He also is a part of Maroon and White Daily. As you know, Six Pack Speak. You guys know all about that. Am I blowing your cover, Stephen? I'm sorry. I don't know if you're trying to go anonymous or anything, but here we are. I'm starting to warm up to Stephen a lot more than Brian, because Brian keeps taking these vacations at important times, and I'm not a fan of that. So we might need to switch out. Thunder and Lightning might need to be Stephen Augustinelli and Robbie Falk, I think, moving forward. I don't think a lot of people would be opposed to that. Anyway, back to the whole conversation about the last 2 days. The men get selected in the NCAA tournament. As you guys know, after a great run in Nashville, the SEC tournament, they're going to Charlotte. I'll be leaving for Charlotte in the morning, going with my good friends Stefan Krajnik from the Clarion Ledger and my 2 favorite WCBI reporters, John Sokoloff and Grace Ibarra. We're going to attempt to pile into a vehicle and drive off to Charlotte, North Carolina tomorrow to watch Mississippi State hopefully make it all the way through Sunday and maybe to the Sweet 16. We'll see what happens with that Thursday-Saturday matchup that Mississippi State has. They will be taking on Michigan State, a great program. What Tom Izzo has done in, I guess, almost, 30 years now has been incredible. And this might be one of his worst teams, and they have a possibility of winning 20 games. They're a 9 seed. If you talk to Michigan State fans, they're not happy with what's going on, and they still made a tournament yet again. And this is not going to be easy. You're going up against one of the great coaches of all time. You know they're going to be well coached. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Mississippi State. Thursday at 11:15 on CBS. Make sure you guys are tuned in. I'm sure you will be, but it's going to be a battle for the Bulldogs. But this is a team I just wrote about, and you can go read it on our site now. That is to me very well prepared for this moment. They are 8-1 in neutral site games, with their one loss coming against the SEC tournament champs in Auburn on Saturday, and what was day 3 at the tournament, while Auburn was on day 2. And they were down by 3 points in the last 20 seconds. That was their only loss at a neutral court this season. Mississippi State has been very good at neutral court. And then you look at the SEC schedule that they played this year, just incredible. I mean, this team has played a gauntlet of a schedule. They're 21-12. And you look at the schedule, and, I mean, you look at the record, and it might not blow you away or anything like that, but I think we can all look at this Mississippi State team at this point and say they're not going to back down for whatever team they see in the NCAA tournament, and that includes North Carolina, UConn, Houston, Purdue. I don't really care who it is. I think this Mississippi State team is going to be well prepared. They're not going to be, the moment's not going to be too big for them. I think they're going to be a team that is built for this kind of atmosphere and this kind of moment. So, going to be really interesting to see how this state team comes out in NCAA tournament play, and I'm really looking forward to that. Before we get to questions, want to talk briefly reviewing the baseball series as well. And I talked a lot more in depth about all 3 of these things: men's basketball, women's basketball, and baseball on a Talkin Dawgs on Sunday night. So if you guys want to go back, you can go back on this channel and listen to that. About 28 minutes. I dug into all 3 teams pretty extensively, and we can do it on here too, moving forward with questions, but you can go check out that. But the baseball team, it was a 2-2 week, but this is not really, you look at the 2-2 record, and it's a much greater week than that. And that's with including a loss to South Alabama, in which you were up 5-0. Tough start to the week in that game. 5 runs came in 1 inning, and then you blew the lead late. You lose the ball game in South Alabama. It was really frustrating loss, and then you turn around, you only scored 1 run in the first 10 innings in a game against New Orleans. So it just really looked like it was going to be a rough week for Mississippi State with South Alabama and New Orleans, and then you had LSU coming up on the weekend, the number 2 team in the country and the defending national champs. All of a sudden, and I don't know if this really did it, but Aaron Downs walked off the ball game against New Orleans, and an energy came out from that, I think, and really saw a team turn the corner offensively for Mississippi State after that. You scored in 3 innings in 2 ball games. And then you come into the LSU series, you get a great relief appearance from Nolan Stevens, who is your freshman of the week in SEC play. 5 2/3 innings, gave up 1 hit, and that came in the 9th inning with 1 out. Gave up, I think, a walk and 1 run, and struck out 8 batters, or 2 walks, I guess. So before that, he had only walked 1 guy, no hits in the first 5 1/3 innings. He gave Mississippi State a chance to get a lead and build it, and they really exploded. Hunter Hines came out of his shell, 10 runs in the ball game. Mississippi State rolls against LSU 10-4, beats Luke Holman, and he gives up his first runs of the season basically at this point. It was really an incredible job of Mississippi State offensively and by Nolan Stevens to set the tone. You move into game two, and I thought this was the game that really personified, Mississippi State moving forward from these last two seasons. Game two, down 9-1, terrible start from Cal Steven. Didn't get a good relief appearance right after him from Gavin Black, but guys like Carson Ligon and Tyson Harden, guys that people have kind of given up on, they come in and they really compete for you there. Leave the game where it is, and the offense starts to pick up where it left off. And they score 7 unanswered runs and end up getting that to a 9-8 ball game. They lose that ball game, but like I said, I think that really moved this team forward. We saw a different energy around this team. We saw a team that battled back. We saw a team that wasn't taking any crap off of LSU in the other dugout. There wasn't any stomping on home plate from the Tigers, or if there was chirping, they were getting it right back from guys like Johnny Long and Dakota Jordan and guys like that. So State turns around and wins the next ball game on Sunday in run rule fashion. 15-5 was the final, I believe, and MSU takes the series. Nobody was expecting that. Nobody was expecting Mississippi State's offense to explode like that. They competed on the mound. They played great defense, and they were relentless. They would not give up in all three ball games. And this is the Mississippi State baseball team that we got used to seeing under Chris Lemonis in 2019 and the early part of 2020 and 2021 when they won the national championship. This is Mississippi State baseball. Guys that aren't going to back down, guys that they win at home. They take care of business at Duty Noble more often than not. They're relentless at the plate. They're a tough two-strike team. They're a tough team with runners on base. This is what Mississippi State baseball is all about, and they haven't done that hardly at any point the previous two seasons. So it was great to see. And is Mississippi State back? I don't know. I don't think we can definitively say that. This could have very easily been a fluke weekend. I choose to believe it's not. I think that State is moving in the right direction. And we've seen signs of this on the mound and defensively, but this really is kind of a turning point, I think, for the Bulldogs, and we'll see if they can carry that over now to these next two series against two top 10 teams in Florida and A&M. It's going to be tough, but we'll see how it goes. All right, enough of me blabbing on that. I know you guys want to get into some questions. You guys have been clamoring to start this thing back, and it's just been a crazy few weeks, crazy couple months. It's the craziest it's been now, but again, I feel bad for you guys because there's so many people apparently that live and die on Thunder and Lightning running every day. So we will go ahead and jump in. And I just want you to know that I'm the hero here. It's not Brian. Brian's eating. He's cheating on his diet in Denver, and he is not the hero. It is I. So I just want that to be known. All right. Let's get it rolling. Jay in Baltimore, I know you're absolutely pumped to be talking baseball again. Any indication Lemonis may look to utilize Nolan Stevens as a starter in the near future? That's a good question. With the issues, I guess, per se, with Nate Dome and, his injury, it's brought into question what Mississippi State does on Friday nights. And I think based on our conversations with Chris Lemonis yesterday, I asked him about that, about Nate Dome and his status. He was back throwing pregame yesterday. That's a great sign. I don't think he's out there dressed out and throwing in the bullpen if he wasn't, in pretty good shape. And Lemonis basically explained it that they have to wait 2 days, I think, after an MRI before someone can get back to throwing. So that's the only reason yesterday was his first day back throwing. It's going to be something to monitor. If he's not able to go, Nate Dome, this week, I would certainly consider it because you really need to get off to a good start. And it is something that should be considered, I think, against a really good offense like A&M has. I don't know if he's a better reliever or a better starter. I don't know if we'll know that. But so far, he has been absolutely nails out of the bullpen, and he's been really good, in the lineup when he's been given his chances as well. Also, Bradley Lofton expected to continue as a midweek pitcher. I would imagine kind of bringing him along that way. I mean, I do have to wonder at what point does Bradley Lofton move into the weekend, in some form or fashion? Because he is um, obviously he's been pretty successful in the midweek, and I wish I could look at stats, but Mississippi State's website is absolutely terrible. But since the last year, outside of walks, he has been really good, and I think he's got kind of that demeanor about him, that dog mentality. He competes, and when runners are on base, he's been good. I mean, he hasn't been a guy that's been just shelled or knocked around the yard, and it looks like he's finally getting healthy. I would probably leave him in the midweek for now, unless you really start to struggle with your guys on the weekend, because you need a guy out there that's going to compete and give you a few innings, as we've seen. I mean, State just has been kind of hit or miss there as far as the starter is concerned. But I thought they did a pretty good job in the midweek last week. We'll see what they do with Lofton. He was really good last week, and it kind of sucked whenever he came out and State struggled there. Drew C., what names have you heard that Sam Purcell's contacted in the portal, and how do you feel about them? I think that there's been contact with Asia Petty from Kentucky. I believe Mississippi State is on the trail for her. A couple players from Arkansas. I think Mississippi State is going to be after. They have had several enter the portal already. And it wouldn't shock me to see them go after Ruby Whitehorn from Clemson. They are very active. From what I've been told, they are very active trying to rebuild this roster for next year. They got a few players coming back, but they're going to have to go get some real impact players to help them out here, because it's just, as we've seen, I mean, they got to have better players, and they got to do a better job too. Bob Evans, WBIT sounds like a backwoods radio station. Yeah, I'm not sure why they changed this whole. I mean, the format is, to me, it seems virtually the same. I don't understand the WNIT getting pushed to the third tournament, it looks like, and changing the name. It just doesn't make sense to me. Jay in Baltimore, can you confirm that Ross Highfield and Stone Simmons are out for the year? Well, Chris Lamona's actually confirmed that yesterday. We've been talking about that for a while, and it's been pretty wildly known, but this is the first time I think that he's commented on that. And we also saw Stone Simmons tweet out a picture today. He came out of surgery. I don't know exactly what his injury is there. You'll have to forgive me on that, but it is elbow. And just for whatever reason, that this was just a bad recovery from him on his Tommy John. And I hate it for him, because he could have very well been back late last year, couldn't get back, and it looked like he was going to be ready this year, and they just couldn't get him back in there. He re-injured that thing. So I don't know what the timetable is on that. I asked Chris Lamonis after the press conference if he would be returning or if he could return. And Chris said he could return. He could be back next year. They would obviously have to get a waiver. I feel certain they could get that for a 6th year after he's missed basically 2 years in a row. He could easily get that waiver, but it just depends on whether or not he wants to, I guess. I would imagine he wants to, but we'll see what he decides to do. Hey Sven, how you doing, man? I know you were in town at some point this year. I can't remember if I've talked to you since then. Hope you had a good trip. Richard Neal, do you think that missing the big tourney will draw Jacayla Jordan back for next season? Yes, I feel very good about Jacayla Jordan coming back. I think we could have an announcement pretty soon, by the way, on that. It wouldn't shock me at all if she announced her return to Mississippi State. She loves it here. I think she wants to finish strong. And one of the players that really pushed for Mississippi State to play in postseason this year as well, even if it wasn't the NCAA tournament. She's a very important piece to get back, to say the least. An all-SEC guard, 1,300 points in 3 years from Mississippi State. Just very important to get her back. I feel like it's pretty imminent. I feel good about it. Sven says if Nate Dome would have played Friday, we sweep them. Well, I mean, here's the thing: they won that game anyway. What are we talking about here, Sven? You meant Saturday, but Dome would have pitched on Friday. They won that Friday game, buddy. Jay, does the epic failure at the end of the season put much pressure on Sam Purcell next season? Does he need an NCAA bid? I don't know, where they stand with that. I do think, the pressure is going to increase because you went to the NCAA tournament last year. That was great. Everybody was singing your praises because nobody, I mean, I wouldn't say nobody, but a lot of people did not expect Mississippi State to go to the NCAA tournament last year because they had back-to-back tough seasons. They didn't play very well before he got here and didn't even make a postseason tournament. He gets them back in. He wins 20 games. He showed a lot of progress. He won 2 ball games in the NCAA tournament. This year, with to me, a better roster, they missed out on the tournament. It was a disappointing season in every single facet. You beat LSU. You went on a 6-game winning streak, and you look like you're pushing for potentially a top 4 seed. You definitely were in the mix for a top 4 seed in the SEC tournament, and this is a team that could have very easily finished very strong and gotten a 5 or 6 seed in the tournament and been a dangerous team in postseason play. Instead, you're hosting a WBIT, which most people didn't even know existed. So it's a very disappointing end of the season. I do think the pressure is on him next year, and I think that's a big reason why he is really pursuing the portal harder than ever. This is a staff that's put a lot of work in since the portal opened, and they're going to try to right the ship here, and we'll see if they're able to do that. But I think you will see some changes in the offseason with this staff, and I think they're going to try to push forward and make sure this doesn't happen again. But it's going to be an important year. Robbie Lundine, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Awesome weekend for Hines. Got to feel good for him. I agree, man. I'm happy to see it starting to come together for him. That you could tell it was bothering him a little bit as he was scuffling at the plate, but seeing that first home run go over the fence, I think it was last weekend. That was big, and he's now come back with I think 3 home runs against LSU. He's starting to heat up, and if you got a guy like that right behind Dakota Jordan, because they were walking Dakota Jordan intentionally, and he wasn't able to make them pay. You got a guy like that now. Now your offense is cooking, and then you got Larry, who's doing a pretty good job. Didn't have a great weekend, but he came through with some big hits and some big at bats on Sunday. David Mershon also struggled a little bit at times, but he also came through with some big hits. If you got that lineup with 1 through 4, Monty Larry, David Mershon, Dakota Jordan, Hunter Hines, and then Connor Hijack is starting to come through. There's 5. 1 through 5 right there, that is a pickle to try to get through. I mean, that's really difficult to try to pitch through there. And there's a tough at bat in every single one of those guys. And you're getting some good at bats there at the bottom lineup. If State is batting like that most of this SEC schedule, I think they're going to pitch and play defense well enough that this is going to be really tough. This is going to be a tough group to knock out. And I think the mindset's changing a little bit. If they can just get that kind of production, and maybe not even that every single game, but you just need quality at bats. I think that this team could be really dangerous in SEC play, and that's a big change from what we thought even last week. Sven, our pitching is light years better than last year. Coach Parker had his boys ready to play, and hitting comes over time, and we saw it this weekend. I think we can make at least a regional. I think you got to get to 14 for sure, 14 SEC wins, which is 12 more. That's a lot, but it's we'll see what happens. Jay in Baltimore says heroes don't always wear capes. That's right, man. I'm just trying to stay humble. I mean, I'm just trying. There's it's a tough job. I'm proud to do it. I'm proud to be a hero. If I have to be, if Brian wants to be the villain, I will be the hero. I will be Batman. That's going to hurt him too because he wants to be Batman. Bill Jones, when will we see extension for Jans? I get the impression that Jans doesn't really want to do that kind of stuff until after the season ends. That's just my theory. Didn't happen last year until after the season. I think that it's just one of those deals where he would like to just focus on the tournament right now, get that over with, and then he and Zach Selman can sit down. But I feel confident that Mississippi State's going to present him with a really good contract because he's going to be a wanted man here soon, whether it be this year or next cycle. Mississippi State has got to invest in him. They've got to invest in basketball, which I think we've seen. And the one thing that I always say is the base is there for Mississippi State, whether it be the boosters or whatever. They have shown to be very supportive of basketball. It's just taken time for this fan base to wrap itself back around in basketball. It's been tough. All the years that this team has struggled, or they've even when Rick Stansbury was here towards the end of his career, they didn't perform up to expectations. They had great teams, or at least great players, and couldn't get the best out of it. And then you move into a really dark period with Rick Ray, and Ben Howland. It took him time to build it back up. And the fan base never really got behind Ben Howland, I don't think. But Chris Jans has brought a little something extra out of this fan base. I think you're starting to see people really immerse themselves more into basketball than they have in the last decade, and the last decade plus. So hopefully showing up, they sold out most of the SEC games this year. The student turnout was really good. They are starting to get behind Mississippi State, and I think that people are starting to invest more financially in basketball. You have to show Chris Jans that you are a serious basketball fan base, and that he can win here, that he is going to be taken care of here, and that his NIL is going to be taken care of here so he can get some good players. I think that is moving in the right direction, but Mississippi State is going to have to make a financial contribution to him here in the next few days, I think, to really sew him up and make sure that he stays here for a long time. Alabama's done it with Nate Oates. Obviously, Bruce Pearl, they've done it with him at Auburn. They've really invested in him, and we've seen that with their atmosphere there. They didn't have that kind of atmosphere until he got there. So Auburn's done it. Florida's doing it. You got to do it with Chris Jans because to me, he's one of the best coaches in the country, and he's shown that. And whether or not, he's going to get the best players in the country, I don't know. But I do know that he's going to get the most out of the players that he has. And he's done that the last 2 years. And he's done something that Mississippi State's never done, and that's have a coach come in here and in his first 2 seasons get in the NCAA tournament. So he's got to be paid like it. And you got to pay him like a top half coach in the league, I think. I think he's got to be a guy that is making, top half of the league kind of money. That's the kind of financial agreements you have to keep a guy like that in place here. Jacob Hamilton has Lofton stats: 2 appearances with a 1.80 earner average, 8 strikeouts, no walks, 5 innings pitch, double. Yeah, the walks to me has been the biggest thing. I mean, he was really good in Biloxi, and that was his first extended outing. If he's on, that's a guy that's got some really good stuff from the left side, and I think he can. Eventually, I think he's a weekend rotation guy. It's just keeping him healthy, getting him locked in. That I think is really going to make him a great pitcher. I think that we're already seeing, just in the small snippet we've seen from him so far this year, Justin Parker's really helped him. Robbie Lundine, does Down stick as a starter? He was phenomenal this weekend. I think so. I made a tweet a few weeks ago, and I forget what game it was, but Aaron Downs has been fighting to get into this starting lineup, get playing time for the last few years. And it's just been really difficult to get him in there, get him in the mix, allow him to kind of get in a groove. And that to me has been the biggest issue for him is when they have put him in there, he hasn't had enough time to really get into his groove. And I think now you're finally starting to see it. He had 7 hits and 3 starts this weekend, and really good at bats. Yesterday was really good. Beat out 2 infield singles, had a double in the first inning, 4 or 5 in the ball game. Had a 2-hit game on Friday against LSU. Had a 2-hit game last week against Evansville. You're starting to see a guy that is getting way more comfortable. He had the walk-off hit against New Orleans, but didn't start in the 2 midweek games. So, when he started, when you've seen him start, which he did against Evansville last week, and he had 3 hits in 2 ball games. I mean, what are we talking about here? So he started now on the weekends. Let's see. I guess he started against Air Force and Georgia Southern. He was 1 for 7. And then the last 2 weekends, he had 10 hits and 5 starts. 2 hits a game. I mean, I think we've seen enough, and he's been able to really show himself off as a defender too. He's really good in the field and left field. I think we've seen enough. He's got more potential than some of the other guys at that position. So to me, it's a no-brainer. You keep him there. Maybe every now and then you have a matchup, but I think the lineup as it stands is pretty darn good right now. If now Dylan Cup comes back, to me, he's back in the field. You got to put Dylan Cup back at shortstop, and Bryce Chance comes out, and then Amani Larry's at DH. And Cup has been hit or miss, but he's a freshman. He's so good defensively, he's got to be in there. And we saw even on in the game on Sunday, David Mershon, while a very good athlete, still a little limited in some plays because of his height. And we saw it on 2 plays. They were able to get base hits because he wasn't tall enough to make a play. And that's no shot at Mershon. I mean, it's just physically he just wasn't able to make the play that Dylan Cup, I think, might have made. So your best defense to me is Mershon at second, Cup at short, and Logan Kohler at third, although Monty Larry's been solid too. You're in really good shape in the infield. All right, moving on. Bill Jones said he heard Duke and Kentucky are looking at Hubbard. Think the deal with us is 25,000 a month. I don't think Hubbard's going anywhere personally. I think you're good here. Richard, any idea how our NIL stacks up against Ole Miss? I would say it's probably better in basketball. I imagine they have the upper hand in football. Baseball, probably Mississippi State's better as well. I would think, but I don't know. I don't know the numbers. I do think that Mississippi State's basketball boosters or whatever NIL is in really good shape, and it was for a long time under Rick Stansbury too. I mean, it's just that they have a good group. They really do. Now that's why I'm not concerned about Josh Hubbard or anybody that Mississippi State wants to retain. We'll just see how they're able to do in the transfer portal because they're going to have to spend some money to get some guys in the portal. They're losing a lot of guys. Jay in Baltimore, Dylan Cup would be big for us in the future, but I do like the lineup more offensively with Amani at second and Mershon at short. I agree. I think it's a more well-rounded lineup there. The DH spot is what you got to figure out there. Bryce Chance kind of struggling a little bit, but I think they do have some options there. And, maybe you could have Nolan Stevens in the lineup as a DH. I don't know. Bill Jones, what do you see from Michigan State? How do we match up? Do they play a style of basketball that's favorable matchup for us? They do if Mississippi State's able to take control in the paint. Uh, I think State's got to have a really good performance from Tolu Smith. He's got to be more consistent in the paint. He's been missing way too many bunnies and way too many opportunities where he's got a man beat or he's in position and he just doesn't finish. And that's been hindering Mississippi State a bit offensively because those plays are there to be made, and Tolu hasn't been able to finish. He's got to do that against Michigan State, and I think they will have the upper hand as far as the size advantage down there and what they've been able to do in the post this year. But the last few weeks, that hasn't been the case. So can Tolu put it together? That's kind of the question. But they're a team that solid defensive team. They're not going to really it's not going to be like a Tennessee or Kentucky or Alabama what you're facing offensively. So I think it's a favorable matchup for Mississippi State. I think they can play with them, but I think Michigan State's going to be tough too. I mean, I think it'll be probably a rock fight. It'll be a tough matchup for both teams, but I do think State can win this game. I'm not making any predictions right now, but it's a winnable game for them in round one. Jay, major kudos to Tyson Harden. He's made a huge jump in the last few outings. I didn't see that happening. I agree. He's been really steady for you. He's starting to throw strikes. One thing that Chris Simona said about him is, he's starting to throw with some sink, getting some ground balls. He's done a lot better job in that regard this year. And that was a area last year. He was either throwing something kind of on plane, was real flat that teams were really taking advantage of. That was an issue for him. Walks. He's become a much more well-rounded pitcher this year. And I think the same can be said for Tyler Davis, who again was good against LSU. Both of those guys have been really productive for Mississippi State. And last year, it was like waving the white flag when they came out there. Tyler Davis, a 1.93 earned average in 9 1/3 innings, 10 hits, 2 runs, 4 walks, 12 strikeouts. And then Tyson Harden has a 3.95, but recently he's been better. He's walked 7, struck out 9, but the last 2 outings or so, that's kind of changed. He looks to be pitching a lot better lately for Mississippi State, and that's a great development. Jacob, do you see any of the current players in the men's team hitting the portal? I won't speculate on any of that, but they're always going to have guys leave. This day and age, you're not going to keep the entire roster anymore. They'll have some guys leave. I don't think it's going to be anybody that is a huge surprise. I'll say that. I'm not expecting some major, major guys hitting the portal that you would be upset about, at least. Jacob, where do you see Pico fitting into this pitching staff? I know we're a few weeks away from seeing any real action outside the midweek. Yeah, we'll see when he pitches because I asked about that yesterday, Chris, and said that he was available this weekend. So it wouldn't shock me to see him get out there on Tuesday night against Memphis. But I think he's a guy that he can throw long relief. I don't see him as a matchup guy because I think that you trust him enough. You could probably leave him in there against left-handers and let him face just about anybody. I mean, he was really good last year against most hitters. Split's probably better against the righties, which is normal. But I think that he's going to be a guy that you can use in multiple spots: middle relief, long relief, setup. It wouldn't shock me to see him in any of those spots. And I think that you probably see him this week based on what we've heard from Chris Lemonis. Bill, who are my final 4 picks? I haven't even filled out a bracket yet. So I couldn't tell you. I'm probably going to do that on the way tomorrow, but I don't want to, name teams and they be in the same bracket and I look like an idiot thinking that, 3 teams are going to the final 4 that would have, one of them would have knocked the other out or something. I don't want to do that just yet. But I'll probably fill out a bracket at some point. I usually fill out 2 or 3. Jay, in Baltimore, you saw someone on D1 Baseball question LSU's pitching after the weekend, but I give all the credit to the Dogs being focused. LSU pitching will prove to be great in the weeks to come. Yeah, last year people were saying there's nobody on that pitching staff outside of Paul Skeens, and they were really good. Thatcher Hurd was good. He was really good in postseason play, and he was good at spurts in this ball game. I thought State hit him hard in the first inning. I thought they got to him in the fifth, whenever that was, when they started getting to him there later in the ball game. So that's usually kind of overblown to me. I think that it's probably not a national championship caliber team right now. They have the pieces, they have the players to be that. They aren't playing at that level at this point, but that doesn't mean that they can't be. I think that this will be a really good team. And I do think they're taking a little bit of a hit too. Wes Johnson was really good. He's elite as a pitching coach, and that's a big hit. And also, you lost a generational pitcher, as well as some other guys on that pitching staff that you lost. So we'll see. We'll see how they do, but I think they're going to be much better than people give them credit for right now. I don't know if they're a number 2 team in the country, but they'll be much better. Jacob, team ERA is 3.49 currently, pretty freaking solid. Yeah, I don't know where it was last year at this time, but it was pretty bad. 3.85 after this weekend. Okay, that's still solid. I mean, that's probably middle of the pack in the SEC, which you'll take all day. If State finishes with a 4 earn run average or like a 4, even like a 4.3, 4.5, that's almost a 3-run improvement from where you were last year. That would be he should be assistant coach of the year, Justin Parker, if that happens. And I think people are going to look at those numbers at the end of the year and say this still wasn't very good. When you consider what he took over the last 2 years to make that kind of jump, if they do, which they're heading in that direction, it's going to be a tremendous jump. And I don't know if he'll keep it around 4 runs or whatever, but if it's under 5, I mean, that kind of jump in 1 year is huge. And State's probably going to be, around the top of the league in the least amount of strikeouts. I mean, the least amount of walks. They're going to be up there in strikeouts. So it's there's a lot of improvement already being made. Robbie, are there any men's basketball seniors that can come back next year? Yes, they can get Cam Matthews back. Obviously, Shaq Moore is able to come back. Let me look at the roster here. That might be it as far as seniors. Yeah, that's the only seniors that can come back, Shaq Moore and Cam Matthews. All the other guys, they have used up their eligibility. Austin Sims would often not add more value as a bullpen arm on the weekend rather than being a midweek starter. Maybe it just depends on, what their options are in the midweek. If they need a really good start to win that ball game, because at this point you really don't need to lose very much more in the midweek. I mean, your non-conference, you need to be just about done losing ball games because the schedule is so difficult in the SEC play. You just can't afford to really tack on anymore. And Sanford's always good. Memphis is always a challenge. Central Arkansas has been really good in the past. UAB's can be a tough team at times. You got Memphis twice. You got Ole Miss and Pearl. So, I mean, there are some – North Alabama has upset teams in the SEC before. There's some teams in there you need to take care of. But, yes, I mean, I think he probably is more valuable because it's just another left-handed arm with really good stuff that you could throw out there against an SEC team. And, I mean, he could throw 3 innings in a midweek and then come back and pitch Saturday or something like that. I mean, it's not out of the question for him to run back out there. And we've seen that from guys before, but I'm not sure where his most value is because another thing is we just haven't seen enough of him back from his injury to know if he would be better off against SEC hitting at this point. Jay in Baltimore, any thoughts on the weekend for the softball dogs? Would have really liked to get the series. Yeah, it would have been nice. I mean, Texas A&M is solid. Really good pitching staff. Can really swing the bats as we saw. I mean, that's the worst stretch of games for Mississippi State pitching wise that they've had this year. But it's going to be a gauntlet for Mississippi State softball this year in the SEC. But getting that one on Sunday was big. Just avoiding the sweep. You need to pick up some wins against some good teams in SEC play, but just avoid sweeps. Try to steal some series here and there, and this team will be in really good shape. Bill, I can't imagine what our bullpen ERA was like last year. I think the pitching performance this weekend against LSU was really impressive outside of Saturday starter. Yeah, you really had two guys that struggled, Cal Steven and Gavin Black. And one thing I think to consider is, and I've been told this by some people that have access to those the analytics, because Mississippi State has, and everybody has, the ability to read what the pitch was, what the velocity is, the exit velocity, where the strike zone is. The TrackMan deal has really changed the game, and those pitches were not landing for balls. They were strikes, and the zone got seriously tight, and the umpires they were really forcing the pitchers to throw it in there. I think that's why State was able to get back in the game as well. It wasn't just a Mississippi State thing they were dealing with. LSU was dealing with it as well, and that was tough. I think that really made things difficult on them early, whether it be through walks or forcing in bad pitches that LSU took advantage of. So, I mean, other than that, I thought it was a really good weekend for Mississippi State pitching. Jacob, do you remember Pico's velo and pitch mix pre-injury? He's throwing low 90s, probably 92, 93. Has a changeup, has a slider, curveball, I think, as well. Solid fastball. He's a guy that was really competed last year. I thought didn't really have a lot of games where you said he's just kind of falling apart out there. Even in that game against Ole Miss 2 years ago, I thought that he competed. And he threw a bad pitch to Jacob Gonzalez. If you remember, Jacob Gonzalez tied the ball game and State ended up winning that game, but just made a mistake there. And that was kind of a freshman learning. But what he did as a freshman, I thought, was really impressive. Pitched in 21 games that year. He walked 18 and 36 and 2/3. Not terrible. Struck out 35. So he's a guy that can get a lot of swing and miss with his fastball. He can spot the fastball. He can spot the breaking ball, the changeup. Really good left-handed pitcher. And State's been missing that the last 2 years. But I think they've been able to go out there and get some guys that can help them from the left side. I mean, you look at the left-handed pitchers that they picked up and the guys that are helping them right now. And I don't even count Drangelo Sanja in that, but Cole Cheatham's been a good matchup guy for the most part. Tyler Davis has been really good. Nolan Stevens. I think that you've seen some really good things from Luke Dodson. The lefties have helped Mississippi State here this year. It's been a while since they've been able to say that. This team's been missing left-handed pitching, at least beyond one or two guys, for a long time. And now almost everybody they put out there, you feel good about. All right, any more questions before we get out of here? Got a busy day tomorrow. Heading to Charlotte tomorrow morning. I'll have coverage of the tournament coming your way on Wednesday, as we'll have obviously the practices and media availability, whatever they decide to do there. I'm not real sure. I think it's a press conference setting, but definitely something to be keeping up with if you're a Bulldog fan over there on Maroon and White Daily. Make sure you're over there and checking it out. And obviously, also, I want you guys to subscribe to this channel. Matt Pickney, level of concern of a hangover game versus Memphis tomorrow afternoon. Not too terribly concerned. I think they're playing good baseball. Just come out, pitch it well, play good defense. I think it'll happen. I think you'll be able to get the job done. You're just a more talented team. Garrett Heller, is Kobe Holcomb going to get another chance maybe in the midweek? I still think they're going to use him a good bit. And honestly, last week I thought he pitched well against New Orleans. I think that was the game he pitched in. I thought he did a good job, probably his best game. And I was kind of thinking for a second there that State was going to blow it, but they let him have his moment there. Jay in Baltimore, last one for me. How great was it for us to get the series win and overshadow the series win for the Rebels? I think it was just a good win for Mississippi State. I mean, just finding a way to get a big series win against a top 5 team to start off SEC play when all of us have been saying Mississippi State is going to, at best, win 3 games during this 3-series stretch. That was huge. You showed some fight in those 3 games, all 3 games. None of them were blowouts for Mississippi State from their perspective. And you blew them out basically in 2 of those games. The one loss you had, you lost by 1 run. So it was a super successful weekend, and it's something that Mississippi State needs to build on now. And we'll see if they're able to do it. All right, spring practice starts on Tuesday. Paul Jones will have some coverage from that. I'm not sure. Let me see who we're talking to. Paul's going to be there, I think, about 11 a.m. is when they have interviews, and it's going to be players. And Thursday, they will talk to Jeff Lebby right as the basketball game's tipping off. So stay tuned for all of that. Recruiting is picking up. Caleb Cunningham's coming to campus. He let me know that earlier. So he will be on campus, a 5-star wide receiver from Choctaw County in Ackerman. So there will be visitors on campus. Paul Jones will have stuff on that. We got baseball coverage. We got women's basketball coverage. We got men's basketball coverage. It is red hot. And if you aren't at Maroon and White Daily, what the heck are you doing? Get over there right now. Join the site. We'd love to have you. Come get on the board, mix it up with everybody, talk it up. We got a great group of posters and insiders over there. We'd love to have you today. So come do that. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Even though we don't have a podcast this week, subscribe to the Thunder and Lightning podcast because we will be back next Sunday. We should be back on air. So make sure that you're checking us out over there. All right, guys. Hope you guys had a great time. I appreciate you checking in with me. We are going to try to get this thing back rolling again. It was a fun night. I'm going to go eat some chicken wings and catch you down the road.